Okay, I am not going to lie and pretend that I am a Starfield or Bethesda hater. I am not. In fact, I gave Starfield a 7 out of 10 in a review that I made for the release of the game. The link will be in the pinned comment. However, I have also acknowledged some of the criticism that players have had about Bethesda's space RPG, and this is what I would like to talk about in today's video. These last 3 points that were not given in that review, which do over time seem to take more and more importance when it comes to the lifespan of the title. Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I'm Irad and I'm a space game enthusiast covering primarily Star Citizen but also other games that I like. If you enjoy my content and haven't done so, please consider giving this video a like, and if you think it deserves one, why not subscribing for future gaming content, as it really helps a lot with the YouTube algorithm. So, at launch, Starfield did disappoint a lot of gamers. That's a fact. And among the multiple reasons of this dissatisfaction is the fact that the game already released Obsolete at launch, which was, after all these years of development, something that many people could not accept. Now, before we get to the reasons that made Starfield obsolete from the get-go, I would like to reaffirm the fact that it's not because a game launches with obsolete technology that it is a bad game, and I believe that Starfield possesses a lot of qualities that can make it a pleasant experience and an overall good game, which is why I gave it a 7 out of 10 when I reviewed it. However, as time passed by and we are almost half a year since the release of the game, it does appear that its obsolescence is indeed an issue and may pose threats to its lifespan and its legacy. So, in today's video, I would like to go over the point that makes Starfield dated, why these are playing an important role in the dissatisfaction of players, and also what other space games do better. So, the first point that I would like to make is in regards to the many loading screens that are featured in this game, which are no longer an acceptable feature in modern day games for many players, or at least to such high numbers. And it is true that Starfield possesses a lot of them. You have loading screens between floors, between areas, between ship decks, when entering a building, and of course, when you transition from planetary surface to space and back and forth, as well as when you are changing systems, although that one might be understandable. And I would say that the biggest motive of dissatisfaction regarding these loading screens is that they are just immersion killers. Players want to be invested in their adventures. They want to feel like they are living some sort of imaginary life, taking the shoes of a character that they would never dream of being in real life, and having countless loading screens does nothing but bringing them back to the realities of their lives, the most concrete ones being that they are playing a game and that the characters that they are acting as is not really them. In addition, there are also now quite a few games which tend to reduce loading screens to a strict minimum or even managed to get entirely rid of them, Star Citizen being a prime example. That is why many people could not understand how, in 2023, they were getting a typical experience of the mid-2010s. The next point that angered gamers when Starfield was released was just the way it looked. It is true that Starfield was not the best looking game out there when it launched, which especially not the best space game, which is really unfortunate when you think that multiplayer space games that have a tougher constraints that Starfield managed to aim at photorealism. Starfield unfortunately often swayed towards cartoonish looks, especially when it comes to its characters, which, as often with Bethesda games, rather look ridiculous. To make things worse, it didn't even have NVIDIA DLSS support, something that has changed since November though, but there's also an update in beta phase happening right now in which the developers are working heavily on improving reflection effects, so perhaps that particular point is going to improve onwards. Speaking of characters, this is really here another point of tension between Bethesda and the community. Despite the studio claiming that these are their most advanced characters ever, they still do look like characters from a game released 10 years ago, or perhaps even more. I think I'm being a bit nice here. In an age in which AAA games rely on face scanning and motion capture technology to add more realism to their characters, Bethesda relied on their character creator as well as their own game animation to bring their characters to life, which would have been great 20 years ago, but definitely feels awkward in the 2020s. Finally, the last point that I would like to mention, and this for me was the nail in the coffin, the ultimate immersion breaker that despite the game's qualities and strength made me lose all motivations to play the game, is a fundamental game design flaw in the 2020s, and these are the game's landing zones, especially New Atlantis and Aquila City, which should be more appropriately renamed Aquila Hamlet at this point given how small it is. And us being repeated over and over again that this small village is in fact the capital city and biggest settlement of one of the major factions of the game is just something that repeatedly broke my immersion over and over again to the point when I just feel like uninstalling the game after making this video. And the same can be said about New Atlantis, which is, slightly bigger than Aquila City, but the reality is that it remains a very small town. Sure, with some skyscrapers that are impressive looking, but still a small town nevertheless. You would expect the main hub of the game's most powerful faction to sprawl kilometers and kilometers onwards, but no, you can cross it on foot within minutes, and it is just ridiculous. And I am going to compare these settlements once more with what we can see in Star Citizen, a game that features metropolises so large that one of them even covers an entire planet. Sure, only a fraction of that is explorable, but nevertheless, it definitely adds to the sense of awe and immersion. Besides, even in Starfield's micro cities, we do not need to explore every building and rooms there are. They act as background for a bigger story, as a decor, and I've got to say that when you compare Starfield and Star Citizen, clearly Cloud Imperium Games did a much better job at representing what a city would be several centuries in the future. So there we have it, how Bethesda launched Starfield as an obsolete game. As I mentioned before, there are really some aspects of Starfield that I truly enjoy, especially its secondary quests and some of its action sequences. But in the end, I can't help but think of it as a failure, and I always keep in mind of what could Bethesda had done if they had spent the resources to invest in developing technologies that are now becoming a staple for this kind of game. But let me know in the comment section down below. I am sure that there are ways you may see Starfield being obsolete that I did not mention. If there's anything I forgot, or if there's anything that you would like to talk about, make sure to share it with all of us. With that comes the end of this video. If you liked it, please make sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next one.